Well, hello, I'm live. I probably don't look that great. It's the first live stream I've done in a while. Um, this is my living room, which works as an office for what I do in the film industry, which at the moment is distributing films. We just put a film into the Odeon and we had an opening weekend, which was great in Glasgow for the film Dracula on Holiday. And it was fantastic to be able to learn the system and the digital setup for a thing called a DCP master and how that is keyed in now. Back in the day when I first started, it was 35mm and very different because it went on a flatbed. Now it's a file, which is completely different. And it was great to discover that some of the other independent cinemas also have the same system. So we're up and running, and we have another screening going to be happening of Dracula on Holiday in the Highlands of Scotland, which is great because I don't think they get enough indie films, and they only really run one or two of the studio films at any one time. But so that's going to be on the 13th of October in Fort William. So I'm very excited about that. And then we have the whole of Halloween week for Dracula on Holiday from the 29th of October all the way through to the 2nd of November. So it's going to run for a whole week, and there are other cinemas I'm chasing for this, and I'm hoping that there'll be more venues for the film Dracula on Holiday. On top of that, we also have an award-winning film called The Right Bus, which has got a Best Film Award, a Best Director Award, and a Best Actress Award for Suzanne Kendall, Best Director for Robbie Moffat at the Love Film International Festival in Los Angeles. So that is brilliant, which means our posters have got 3 laurels. But not only that, they've got a 4th laurel because that's going into the Boston Film Festival competition. So that means it gets a laurel. So you never know, it might get a prize. So that's steaming ahead. So we're looking for cinemas for that one, a lot more than Dracula on Holiday, which was a tester film to see if we could get the Masters into the Odeon system, which we did. And it ran for 5 screenings all weekend in Braehead in Glasgow. An excellent venue. And I think they're going to get very excited there about the James Bond film. And I wish them good luck. And I hope that they do rescue British cinema. I've started a new venture for the company, which is doing theatrical releases. And the next one after The Right Bus is going to be a biopic about the very, very famous singer Leonard Cohen. And it's about his first love. So Long Marianne is the name of the song, and the film is called that too. And it's about their love affair on the island of Hydra in Greece when he was a young man, and it's his first album. It's amazing, beautiful, true love story, and the film hits all and ticks all the right boxes. So I have great hopes for that one, and the Odeon do too. So more will be heard about that in the future. But that's not really what I wanted to say, although it's very, very important and it's my day job, and I take my hat off to the team that helped to get those films in the cinema, and long may it continue. I'm sorry about the halo above me. I probably could get rid of that somehow or other by hitting a light, but I'm just going to continue because I'm live. I wanted to say I've entitled this "Something is Rotten in the State of Denmark," and that refers to the statement. I think it was Hamlet. It might have been Macbeth. My Shakespeare isn't that great, but obviously what it meant was something is not quite right in the politics of a domain. And I'm talking about this at a local level where today I was accused of stealing a fridge magnet from an art store, which I didn't do at all. What I did was I picked up 2 business cards of the events organizer and put it in my shopping bag, because I was carrying water. So, and the person at the stall wasn't even there, so they weren't actually doing the job. They were behind me, and they didn't see what had happened, and they openly accused me of stealing. So I took in umbrage to this, like any normal human being would, and I took everything out of my bag, and I showed her there was nothing there that had been stolen. There was no apologies made. And I said, look, I take off my coat. So you see, I haven't stolen anything, and please check my pockets. She refused to do so, which compounded it because it made it look like she was scared that she might find something, right? So, I didn't do that. I went back later, and I asked for an apology, and it was stated in a very, very non-committal way. So the jury's out on that one, and um, because it damaged my reputation in public, and I'm an artist, I'm a filmmaker, they might be very lucky if my lawyer actually lets them off with nothing, which is that there might be a damage claim to this organisation for the way that I was treated and the assumption by somebody there that I would steal something. And it was done as an inference, which legally is even worse. It's not done openly. It's done in a covert kind of under the carpet way. So more may be done with that. And then so today I ended up defending myself for something I was wrongly accused of. They accepted that I did not steal anything. They could see quite openly there was nothing there. And that's it. And a lot of people in society were wrongly accused of things that they didn't do. And the problem that I saw and I can see is that there's a hive mentality that seems to think that people are very scared because they might get, if they speak up about a clearly wrong thing, a miscarriage of justice, they will be picked out by internet trolls, and they're not willing to therefore then speak out about the problems or even defend the people who've been wrongly accused. And this is a horrible state of affairs, both on the internet and in communities, that the internet and things like Facebook have created an atmosphere that if you speak or defend somebody, you might then be tarred with the same brush, etc., etc. And then people don't speak out, and democracy is affected by that. And their ability to speak out is the same. I would hope that somebody who saw that would then speak out and say, we saw that you didn't do that. It's very, very clear. And people aren't willing to either do that on the internet. So, I think this is a big problem for global warming because people need to actually realise, as far as my own opinion is concerned, that their public servants, i.e. the politicians, are not prepared to go far enough to save the planet and the lives of our children and our grandchildren. They're not. None of the things that they say that they think might help is going to go far enough to do it in the time it needs to be done. And they're quite willing to defame, find ways of defaming people's character and trying to make it stick as if that's the way that they can be vindicated from their own crimes. In future generations, as Leonardo DiCaprio said, this generation will be vilified for its lack of action, its inability to seize the moment and change the energy, types of energy that we use, the technology for that, and change it into something else. We're not the heroes that we think we are, the people who sat in big houses and ate microwave meals and chucked the plastic in the bin. Those people are going to be vilified, and it's on mass scales. And I can see why in the earlier days of the 1960s, the activists came to certain conclusions about what was the best thing to do. You know, I'm coming to that conclusion myself. But before I go into that, I wanted to talk about the other thing that I found myself having to defend myself against today, which was seeing the repeated neglect of an animal. And that animal's story is really quite horrible to listen to. And I've seen it, and I've had to rescue that animal, and that rescue continues. I don't know how it's going to work out. It's a cat that is blind in one eye and losing its eyesight in the other, because it's so desperate to get away from its current owners that it was coming to me and banging its head against my door. And in some of the days, I could see the blood drops on the floor at the door. So I relented and felt that the animal needed some care and attention. So I've been feeding it and giving it milk and trying to get it back to its former state of its eye so it doesn't lose its other eye. I don't know how it's going to work out. The owner has asked for the cat back, and it's clear that the cat is severely neglected. I found out that cats roam, that cats, when they decide they don't want to live in a house, they will go away and they will try and find other homes to live in. And that's okay if a cat has not been abused and if it's in a caring community where the other cats and the other householders can try and figure out what to do with the cat. But in a situation where the cat obviously, at an earlier time, I believe that it lost its eye because it was banging its head against other people's doors and to ask for food, to ask to come in from the cold weather, because it didn't want to be in the house that it currently is. So that's clearly a case of animal cruelty. And I did take advice from the Scottish RSP, the British RSPCA, and they are looking into the matter. I've never had to do this in a community where in one day I had to defend myself against a lie about somebody accusing me of stealing something that I didn't, and or also defend an animal from neglect. And, you know, there's a fine line between neglect and cruelty. So I've had to do that. And I thought, well, this is all in the same theme. It's about people not taking responsibility, either for their animals, providing them a good home, and or other people in the community not taking responsibility against institutions. And it was an institution I was up against. It was somebody who was on a committee. And I spoke back to them and I said, well, you can take your art committee and do what you want with it. And so probably I've blown it in the community of Kirkcudbright because I spoke back to the person in the committee who accused me of stealing. But there was something orchestrated about it, and I could already see in the 5 months I've been in Kirkcudbright that there's a kind of like group of people that decide who gets to be seen and exhibited and those that don't. Others are very open. I've already had an exhibition of 4 paintings in what they call the Open Harbour Gallery, and there were no smacks of corruption there. But I'll use the word of corruption, and it goes through the whole art system and the whole film system, where certain people are chosen for certain things and others are not. And this continues in funding bodies as well. And so I'm sure because I spoke to the wrong or right person and corrected her on a character assassination which was done there in public. You know, I'll be on the blacklist again. I'm probably on the blacklist in film anyway for having written a film about Robert Burns' Red Rose, where I accused the British state of murdering Robert Burns back in the 1790, during the French Revolution. Well, so be it. It did look as if he had been carried off in a very convenient way by being given mercury by his doctor, who had been framed for his involvement in the French Revolution. So you're welcome to look at that film. It's available on Amazon in America on DVD. If you want to buy it, you will find out My Sins, which is where obviously Robert Burns was an anti-monarchist, although I think the Queen's great and they do a lot of charities. And I think what they're doing now with global warming is fantastic. Back then, which is 200 years ago, there was a bit of a problem. But now I think they're probably a more democratic institution than this kind of weird internet hive mentality, which is judgmental and non-thinking. And it's a knee-jerk reaction, and it's the loudest voice wins. Not the goodest voice, not the correct voice, and certainly not the morally correct voice. So that's what I wanted to say tonight. And I've decided that I'm not going to lie down and have people defame me in public. Watch people be cruel to human beings and animals and any other entity for that matter. I think that at this time with COVID, and the jury's out on that in terms of how successful the programs that politicians have created are going to be for the reduction of that virus. It doesn't seem to be reducing that much. So whoever, whatever, needs to get back to the lab and create much, much better virus protection systems. That's all I'm going to say about that. Because the deaths are continuing, and in the United Kingdom, last month it was 4,000 people died. So something has gone wrong somewhere, and people are not honest enough with each other in this hive mentality to talk about it. And there's a lot of pushing of views that are not the truth. So all I'm saying is let's look at the truth. I can understand why my compatriots in the 1960s decided on a lot of things that they did and a lot of statements that they made, and I've kind of reached that area, which is that if the state thinks that the best way of dealing with complaints and the public being unhappy about something that they demonstrate in the streets, if the state thinks that the best way of dealing with that is covertly getting rid of people and or not bothering to cease COVID because it's a convenient way of reducing the world population so that global warming statistics reduce, not because they've done anything about it, but because they've actually reduced the number of people who are driving cars because there's less population. What a cynical idea that is. And that is being written about in background documents that are sent to the press. The idea of reducing the world's population. Well, I don't think we should be killing humans. I think we should be removing the gas from the motor cars that causes global warming in homes in the ozone layer and all the other things, and replace it with water, wind, power, and any other technology that these clever scientists are going to have to quickly invent. It'd be good if they invented it just as quickly as they invented the antiviral stuff. That would be great if they could just find and settle on a few more technologies other than the electrical car, which is obviously what we're going to have to switch to. So I would be saying to people that COP26 in Glasgow is extremely important, and that the only way now to make people pay attention is to demonstrate in the streets, is rise and spend the days that those politicians are there in encampments and peaceful protests. Like, for example, I'm a member of Extinction Rebellion, and I think that they have a series of things that they're going to do. I would certainly want to get involved in that. And the reason being is this, because I think if the state decides that it's going to kill us rather than support our lives and change the energy and support our households to switch over, then the only other thing to do is to fight back. And, it may come to the fact that they don't want us to fight back. Well, they've got another thing coming. I, for one, am not going to accept orchestrated ways in which my name is, um, you know, badly spoken about because of false accusations, and I'm nipping it in the bud. And I would say to my filmmakers also, if I'm doing a subject matter that I'm developing, I'd say to them, don't do it. Don't do a similar film that sounds like what I'm doing, because if you do, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. And I just feel today and this weekend I have to stand up for a few principles. And didn't we all have to do that in the 60s and in the 70s and during Woodstock and all of that? I remember my family and, you know, always being castigated for the way in which the CIA had treated some people who of the same name as my family were treated when they went out and did the fuck the army tour, right? Now, I remember that what was going on in 1972, and the pressures that my father was under at the time because of that. He was a local politician, and he was very well aware of it, and it constrained him because there was not a lot of things he could do because he worked in the Department of Agriculture. But he was a man before his time because he knew about land management, and he used to talk about how wrong a lot of things were. He used to have to go out to animal cruelty cases and cases also in farms where workers had died because they had been mistreated or the machinery was outdated, faulty and dangerous. And he used to have to write those reports about how farms should be better managed. And he was also part of the first foot and mouth disease, where they had to institute antivirus programs. So he knew that the food production was very, very corrupt. And we're still there at that juncture. So COPS 26 has to break through. And the only way to break through the denial of our leaders is to eyeball them face to face and to say, you are wrong, you are corrupt, you need to make the changes, and don't defame the defenders of the planet. Defend the defenders. And these are people like me who do documentaries on wildlife. I'm just doing one about the plight of donkeys, which sounds like soft journalism. It certainly is not, because it involves looking at the skin trade and how certain organisations, worldwide organisations, are making money out of killing 4.5 million donkeys a year. There's only 45 million donkeys on the planet, so therefore do the maths. What is the maths? 4.5 million killed in 1 year for a skin trade that creates collagen in makeup and in health, pills to sort of. Actually, COVID was one of the things that they were saying, that donkey skins is called EOJ, could defend you against, when there's actually no proof of that at all whatsoever. So they're killing these donkeys, and it'll take 10 years at the rate, if it's not stopped, for donkeys to become extinct. And this would be a tragedy for lots of communities in Africa and India and other third world countries, because they're the beasts of burden that carry business things around. So I'm just adding my voice to that, and I would plead with people to look at animal cruelty and think about the one thing: if a person can be cruel to an animal, they can be cruel to a human being. And I've certainly seen this in Kakubri, where there's a kind of mass kind of snobbery that exists. And if I've blown it with the artistic community, so far, so good, because I can do better than that. And I wouldn't want to be stuck in what has become, because of the way it's arranged, a backwater, despite the fact that it's international art that commenced here with Cornell. But, you know, I'll take my art to bigger venues, and perhaps this is a spur for me to do it. So I'm going to say to everybody, good night and good luck. Defend yourself against people who are in themselves corrupt. And the only way that they can defend themselves is to defame other people. It certainly is going nowhere. So stand up for yourself, everybody. Good night and good luck.